Um, Johana Johari, thank you very much for being here and being part of Mental Health and Happiness Forum,
Yep.
and being ready and willing to answer the questions that we have. So, first question for the day is, how, my darling, do you define mental health and happiness?
Okay, to me, mental health and physical health cannot be separated. It is part of the whole thing. And because, you see, what we eat will affect our body, and it will also affect our brains. So in order for us to have a healthy mind, we need to be healthy holistically. I do not believe that mental health and physical health can be separated. So to me, and as for happiness, the way I defined it is contentment.
Okay. And okay, so we are both in Malaysia, and it's a multicultural country. What are your biggest personal and cultural obstacles to happiness?
I think the personal obstacles would be the biggest. I think is actually the unrealistic expectations of oneself, and the way we define ourselves
Okay.
as individuals, whether it by race or by religion.
Mm-hmm.
And then as for the cultural obstacles, there's the ethnic culture, and then there's the religious culture. And again, I think these things are measured according to our own perceived expectations or ideals as to what we should be as like in my case, as a Malay Muslim woman, and ideals versus reality, I guess. If the ideals and the reality match, then I guess I can say I'm happy.
Okay. Okay. I mean, this is an important question, and I think many counselors and therapists would like to know, how do you approach counseling from an openly client-supportive counseling session? Because I know you see a multitude of clients, from LGBTQ to family problems, to suicide, to various kinds of clients, and you see all races and all religions. So, from an open client supportive perspective, how people assume that Islam is a rigid belief system. So how do you approach therapy with all these multitudes of clients from all various backgrounds and support the client in their issues?
I think the obstacles mostly it comes from the client themselves when they come to see me. For example, they judge me by the way I dress, and they assume that just because I wear all black, then I must be a very religious Muslim woman, and that because of that, I am not able to fully understand their culture, which country they come from, and usually they are proven wrong. They are proven wrong because although I may not have traveled the whole world, but my expertise lies in cross-cultural counseling. And therefore, because of my curiosity of the different cultures throughout the world, I am always asking questions. And in that process, I learn a lot from other people's culture. So, as an example, the first ever client that I had who was a foreigner was a man from Houston, and after an hour of speaking with me, he was surprised that out of all the therapists he's been to, I'm the one that eventually understood him most. And he was surprised. I wasn't, but he was surprised, and I found that amusing. And I think the reason is because through our media, we are able to understand the cultures from other countries, and that works to our advantage as a Malay, even a Malaysian therapist working in this country, working with foreign clients. We're able to understand their culture through the media, And because of that, we're able to understand where they come from, although we've never been to the country.
Okay, and how would you manage the hard topics of LGBTQ and all that? When we were speaking privately, you mentioned something about the perspective of how you bring in clients' religion or approach clients' belief systems in therapy.
I do not bring up the topic on religion unless they bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
I do not discuss the word God unless they bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
If they bring it up, it means that that's what they're looking for.
Yes.
But my stance, my personal stance as a counselor, when I go in, I am genderless.
Yes.
I'm without any religion, or my own personal belief system is irrelevant in the therapy. I think that is very important for us to be able to be neutral in all sense of the word, and leave any kind of preconceived ideas of what things, how things should be or how things are supposed to be with the client. Leave it outside the door, and really explore what the client's looking for. We seek to understand the clients.
Yes, and from your client base, I do believe you manage that really well. Okay, so moving on to a slightly different to the next question.
Okay.
How do you believe that? Do you believe that there are things people can do to improve their levels of mental health and happiness in today's world?
Yes. Now, if I was to say that we need to keep fit, people will think that it's cliche. But we are what we eat. We are what we read. We are what we watch. Yes, I really truly believe in that. We are who we mix around with, and I think that in order for us to keep fit, in all senses, holistically, we need to be aware of all these subtle influences that we don't realize makes dents into our mind and our psyche, and then it affects the way we think about ourselves and life in general.
Who you meet, who you're with, definitely. But by your description, I think I'm coffee and chisels.
Yep, I guess whatever works.
Okay. So okay, chisels is this like Cheerios Malaysian version of it. Just for those who might not know. So how do you think your work relates to mental health and happiness?
Well, I think when people come to see me, my clients come to see me, they are looking for solutions to their problems. And they think that their problem is the source of their unhappiness. Mm-hmm. And I think what I do in therapy is to help them understand that it is not their problems per se that is causing them the unhappiness, but it's more of how they perceive, how they see their problem, and how they define themselves according to what happens to them.
Yeah.
You know. Sorry. You know how that works sometimes when people define themselves by whatever events that's happening to them. They don't realize this, but if we can help point it out and that they can see that whatever that happens to them is not something that is permanent, but the way they think of themselves and the way they look at a situation or a challenge, if it is a problem or a challenge, it sets the attitude as to whether they are able to think outside the box, or whether they're stuck in a rut. Maybe they have a mental rut of sort. and that's what I mean by the personal obstacle, the cultural obstacles. Those things are the things that we need to discover in our clients and then help them overcome it.
Okay, that's yeah, all right. So it's what's inside them to understand that they're not the event, but they're the person. Okay, and how did you get involved? I mean, counseling in Malaysia is a relatively very new field. How did you get involved in counseling, and the work?
I started out about 20 years ago with youths who were problematic to their families. They would run away from home, they would be doing weed, and they would get into trouble with the law, and they would get pregnant out of wedlock. And my husband and I would take them in and give them food and shelter and unconditional acceptance and make sure that their parents know where they were, and then when they were okay, we would send them home. And now
Okay.
I am very proud to say that all of them are very successful individuals. And that was when my husband pointed out to me that I'm really good at what I do.
Your
So
husband's very good.
my husband is very supportive,
Yeah.
and so he set me out to pursue studies in counseling. And I come from a broken home. My parents divorced when I was 13, and both my parents were very public people. My mother read news and on television. My father is a famous musician in Malaysia.
And you're
And
a famous ex-singer. I'm,
thanks, you.
I'm sorry, it slipped out.
And
You're a current singer. Get you to
and
sing.
and my parents' divorce became very public. It came out in the newspaper, and that's how I found out. And I can't help but think that if only they had had the help they needed back then, back more than 35 years ago, maybe they their divorce wouldn't be so ugly, you
Okay.
know. And I sort of decided that that's what I'm going to do, that I am going to help people overcome relationship challenges, and to provide the confidentiality, the privacy that is much needed, especially in this Malaysian Asian culture, where there's many busybody people who would like to know the private details of very public people, public figures. So I think that privacy, without confidentiality, we would not have a job.
Yeah, well, now you've got Facebook and YouTube, and you don't have to be famous for everybody to know your business.
That's true. That's true. But people generally in the public would like to know the private lives of the rich and famous, or the famous,
Yeah,
and
that's very true.
they're always looking for gossips and stuff like that. So I wanted to be available to those people who are in the public eye, and at the same time they do have challenges, personal challenges that they want to keep private, and that has always been something that I truly believe need to be in place, and that's what I've been championing for almost 2 decades now.
And this is hard. I mean, the work is hard, and your experiences in your life, they're not all, they're all ups and downs and everything like that. So, what is the role that sadness plays in happiness?
I think sadness gives a contrast to happiness. I think that in the absence of sadness, we would not be able to appreciate happiness. I think sadness adds value onto the happiness when it comes, and when we experience it. It has to exist. I truly believe that there has to be a reason why sadness is allowed to exist in this world.
And some people think that if they're mentally healthy, they're never sad again. Now, what would you say to those people who, or what would you say about the idea that if I'm only mentally healthy, if I'm never sad again for the rest of my life?
I think that is very abnormal. That kind of ideals is really abnormal. If you are happy all the time, I would think in this country they'd lock you up.
I think any country.
If you're happy all the time, there's something wrong with you, because normally we would be in the middle of the very sad and very happy timeline or bar, or whatever you might call it, the barometer. We would be somewhere in the middle, and that's normal for us to be not too happy or not too sad, and that's fine. And then once in a while you dip down into being very sad, and then you bounce back up to being just that's okay too. But that's normal. That is normal. It would be abnormal for you to be sad all the time. That's when I would suggest that you seek professional help. But if you are happy all the time, there's really nothing wrong there's really nothing wrong with you, unless your behavior is beginning to bother other people. I mean, causing harm onto other people. If your happiness is causing harm to other people, grievous bodily harm in that kind of sense, then I think that you should go and check it out, But I don't think I come across a client who comes in and says, I've got a problem, I'm happy all the time.
No, nobody ever does that. And, basically, of course, if you're a psychopath killing people to be happy, then yes, you need to be looked at. But out of that,
that's right.
I got you. Okay. So what tips would you give people in order to cultivate happy a happy attitude, a positive attitude towards mental health and happiness?
Okay, I have an issue with the word positive. Coming from my own personal experience, about a year ago, I was diagnosed with having a major depression, and it's genetic. There was a PET scan done on my brain, and it's proven that my hippocampus is shrinking and my amygdala is misfiring. Therefore, I was having major depression, and I was having high anxiety at night, acute anxiety. And I didn't know I was having all these things, and I was having problems sleeping, and I thought that was just insomnia. I had some more body aches and pains and water retention, and I thought that I had thyroid problem. I had it all checked out. I did all the alternative therapies, you name it, acupuncture, herbal supplements, vitamin supplements, everything, and nothing seemed to work for a long period of time, or permanently, or longer than 2 months. So that was when I decided, okay, let's just go and see a psychiatrist. And then when he did the brain scan, he pointed out to me that my hippocampus is shrinking, and it is something that's genetic. It's caused by my genes. Apparently, it runs in my family. Yes, my mother has I thought it was a mood disorder, but apparently it's not. It is actually major depression, and it runs in my family on my mother's side. So I've been managing it with medication since a year ago, since I've been diagnosed. And believe it or not, all the ailments that I was having throughout the years just went away with just one pill. And as a therapist who was very much against taking drugs, after I've tried everything, nothing else worked, I had to resign to the fact that there's something wrong with my brain, and that there was something that I cannot supplement in my food or in my diet, and that's why I had no choice but to take the medication. But it doesn't have to be for lifetime. Once my hippocampus has grown and become of a normal size again, there is no need for me to continue with the medication. So that's what I'm working towards. All right, now having said that, I can't say that there are not times that I have not crashed while being on medication. There would be events or circumstances that will be too overwhelming that your brain my brain at least, just was not able to cope, and I would have a depressive crash. Now, and just because that happened does not mean that I'm a goner or the medication is not working. It is just because the events, the circumstances were just too overwhelming. And that can happen even to a person who's not diagnosed with having major depression. Now, according to the statistics, 1 in 4 people have mental illness.
Yep.
All right. Now, if that is the case, then I think it's about time we work towards removing the stigma surrounding mental illness.
Agreed.
Should not be any different from physical illness, and we who suffer from mental illness, it should not be stigmatized. People tell us to step out of it, think positive. Now, this is when I discovered that thinking positive does not work. What works instead is thinking happy thoughts. Now, the happy thoughts may be associated with a happy memory, or even by watching something that is funny on video on YouTube. Whatever that works, whatever that can get you laughing, will give you hope that, okay, I can bounce out of this depressive crash.
Yep.
That has worked for me, and I've seen that when I prescribe watching something funny or doing things that give them joy or makes them happy, to my clients who are depressed, it works for them as well. Because when people tell us to think positive, and when positive thinking does not work, we end up feeling, oh my God, we are really goners. Positive thinking doesn't even work on me.
Yeah. So then happy thinking works better than positive thinking.
Happy thinking works, yes. Thinking happy thoughts, doing things that brings you joy. It's very important when we talk to people who are depressed or sad that we bring them to focus on things that gives them joy. And usually, people who are sad, they have forgotten to do things that gives them joy.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and we have to look too at what kind of sadness. There are various degrees of sadness. There's when you're physically sad, your body's not healthy.
Yeah.
When you're mentally sad, you're thinking all these sad thoughts. Spirituality also has its sadness when you could be looking for some enlightenment, but you can't find a guide or a path, and therefore you'll be looking for it.
Yeah.
Therefore, you see, there's so many types of happiness that I've come across in my work. Yeah.
Okay. So just to summarize, because you said quite a lot, basically, there is a physical part of being mentally healthy. So
Yes.
sometimes in situations people have physical problems, and that physical problems creates a breakdown. Then you need a pill to come. Then you need some medication by the doctors to get you to normal levels. Now, once you're the normal levels, you can still crash. At
Yes.
that point, it's important to understand, number one, it can still be managed. You start thinking happy thoughts instead of trying the normal think positive, because you've forgotten how to think positive.
That's
So
right.
you might need to, as a client who is experiencing these crashes, even when you are taking, even when you're on good medication or you're in therapy, you need to be reminded of how to laugh, how to
Yeah.
have a good time, how to smile even.
That's right.
Would that summarize what you're saying just now?
Yes, and honestly, I'd like to add that I think the enemy of happiness is not sadness, but it's stress.
Yes.
Because when you are stressed, then you're not able to think about anything else except what is stressing you, and
Okay.
usually it comes in a form of a problem or a
I like
problematic circumstance. Sorry.
I like that as your quote. Your quote is, the enemy of happiness is not sadness, it's stress. That's a
Yeah.
nice quote. Very, very nice soundbite. Say it again.
The enemy of happiness is stress and not sadness.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Okay, so so if somebody was looking for you and who's seen this and would like to talk to you or connect with you, how would they go about connecting with you?
They can Google MY Confidential. It's a private practice that I've been using under for the past 20 years. And I'm also, you can search me on Facebook too. I do have a blog at myconfidential.blogspot.com. Please feel free to browse through and find me. Or you can just look for Johana Johari, and God knows what will come up. But be selective in which one you click.
Okay, also, by the way, you are on goodtherapy.net, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, it's goodtherapy.org, which is an international directory. Yeah, and most of my expat clients find me there because I think in 15, 20 years ago, I was the, no, not 20 years ago, about 12 years ago, I think I was the only counselor who was providing counseling in English.
Yeah, just to mention that Johana is actually one of the pioneers in private practice counseling in Malaysia, who's actually lasted, for this length of time, and she basically is one of those people that built the industry. Because I came a little bit later into the industry, and she was already there. And this is in a country which is very suspicious of counseling and mental health. So she went through quite a bit to build a practice and make a viable practice to where she is now. And as those who follow in the wake of what she started, thanks, Joe, for setting it up for us. It's a lot easier now.
I plan to make it a lot easier for all of you. Because
Oh, gee, thanks.
it's kind of a legacy thing that I'm trying to leave behind, to ensure that mental health assistance is made easily available to everyone, every walk, from all walks of life. Because I think that it shouldn't just be the privileged to get mental health. I think everybody deserves to be mentally healthy.
Yeah. And what just
Yes.
can I ask one more? I mean, this is not in the planned questions, but I'd just like to ask about this idea of the stigmatization of mental health. In Malaysia, basically because of the lack of information, it's a new industry. Because of the various things, when you say you have people are accepting of physical ailments, but when people talk about mental problems and you're coming to see a counselor or a psychiatrist, everybody goes, "What?"
Yes. That's true. That's true. In fact, I would have to say I was at a gathering, and then somebody asked me, "What is it that I do?" And I say I'm a counseling psychologist. And then they said, this lady actually said, "So crazy people come and see you, is it?" And
No.
it's because of people like you that people jump off from high building.
You said that.
Because people like you, with your kind of mentality, and I got really upset because I think that nobody wants to be mentally ill.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to be mentally ill, and everybody who is mentally ill desperately look for solutions or a way out. Everybody wants to be mentally healthy. I want to be mentally healthy, and it's a constant struggle. But
Yeah, well, from
I
all
think sorry.
from all I've known you, the fact that it's a constant struggle is hard for anybody else to notice. And I really thank you for sharing that story, because I know your clients don't know and most of your colleagues don't know as well. So thank you.
Well, I think that I do share with my clients some of my own personal struggles so that they can see that my empathy is not from textbook.
Yes.
It's something that I've experienced personally. And
Okay.
do not be surprised that the fact that a lot of my clients are depressed clients. And then I help them get healthier by first and foremost asking them, how many hours of sleep do you usually get per night? And I check their stress level, and then from there I point out to them and say, look, this is the reason why you're not coping well with your problems, is because you are just overwhelmed. Your body is overwhelmed. It's too stressed up. You're not getting enough sleep. I point all these things out, and when they allow me to help them get all these things in line, and then automatically they find that whatever situation or problem that they may be facing, suddenly it becomes bearable. They
Yeah.
can manage. It's not something that they need a therapist to help with. Unless, of course, that they're well, they're healthy, mentally they're healthy, but they do have other psychological issues. All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and only therapy.
Don't do such a good job that you get us out of a job.
No.
Okay, so I think we are running out of time soon. We're hitting the 1 hour. I think we're hitting the 1 hour button soon. So let
Okay.
me just ask the final question. What would you like the audience to take away from this session?
I think the most important thing is when you are sad, use the word sad, but don't use the word I'm depressed. Do not say I am depressed when you are actually sad. We tend to abuse the word depression to the point that now, when depression has become a real illness, it's been trivialized because of the abuse of that word, misuse of that word, or rather. And when we are upset, we say we're depressed. When we're angry, we say we're depressed. We need to be honest with ourselves and say what it is that we're really feeling. If you're sad, say you're sad. Don't say you're depressed. Don't say you're. If you're angry, say you're angry. Don't say you're depressed. That's what I'm saying. And first, and secondly, I think what is most important is that happiness is a choice.
Yeah.
You have got to want happiness, and you have got to want to get rid of sadness.
Yeah, but there's a payout for being sad, isn't there?
If you are able to do it on your own, yes, there is. There are. I have to admit, there are some people who do not realize it, but they're addicted to misery. they're addicted to misery because there is some form of
Yes.
how do you call it, a comfort zone. It's like a comfort zone. It's there's safety in sadness, because then, you know, if you're feeling happy, then if you're on top of the world, then, you know, the next way to go is just downwards, and they want to avoid that. But the thing is, that's what life is all about. There is no such thing as immunizing yourself and so that you will not feel sad. Part of us being human is being able to feel sadness and happiness, and sometimes both at the same time. We can when
Yep.
one foot in hell and one foot in heaven, and that we're still alive on earth. So
Yes. That's the way, Joe.
that's the way
Okay.
it goes.
Okay, I think we are cut. I think there must be some weather problems as well, because the line just got a little bit bad. So we're sorry about that. That's a little bit beyond our control. But I do think the interview is coming to an end, unless Ken or anybody else has any questions. Or actually only Ken, since it's an off-air interview. No, okay. There's a reason why we're doing off-air interviews is because we've had a series of very bad storms in Malaysia, and the last time I was trying to do a live interview with Ken, the session actually went up. I just could not broadcast. So just to be safe, we're pre-recording most of the interviews, and we're sorry about that from the Malaysian side. Okay. So thank you, Johana. That was a very interesting interview. I totally enjoyed talking with you.
I had
My
fun.
point, yeah, my point of happiness is going to be next cup of coffee, darling.
Awesome. We're gonna
Yeah.
do that. Mistretto Bianco one.
Thank you very much. I'll be stopping the broadcast now.
Yeah.
Okay, bye, darling.
Bye.
Thank you. Uh, my bad. I uh, underestimated the time. So, and we had, yeah, quite badly, in fact. So sorry about that. So we're going to continue the conversation, but this time we are adding a different element to it. It's actually a conversation. I did ask the questions I had planned to ask, and it's a conversation because the two of us were the only two therapists, the only two counselors on duty um, who did duty during MH370 crash in the hotels for over 100 hours. No other two therapists on the books did more than did 100 hours, hit 100 hours. The two of us had the dubious honor of being the two people who did 100 hours on site. That's two hotel sites. One was Bangi Putrajaya and the other one was Everly Hotel. Everly being first and then Bangi Putrajaya, where we were supporting MH370, the families of the people who were affected, or known as next of kin, NOKs, staff of MAS, and various other things. Now, given the circumstances, we will not be talking about direct experiences of clients because a lot of it is PNC. But we'll be talking about it in general terms of how it affected us as therapists. What is happening in Malaysia in terms of mental health? Has there been a shift before and after MH370? All right, Joe. So, just as a therapist in MH370, what was the experience like for you?
Well, I have to say that it was something that is new. I may have been with a therapist for a very long time, but never in a crisis mission such as this, where there were a lot of questions, mysteries regarding the disappearance of the aircraft, and we just had a lot of questions with no answers to, and and it was definitely an extraordinary event, definitely extraordinary. So we had no clue. We were never prepared for this. I mean, some of us may have had training about plane crashing, but never about a plane going missing. So it was definitely something that we were not prepared for, and we really had to take a good look around and observe what needs to get done, and we just do it. And we really have to be fast on our toes and think on our feet, and that was what, at least that was what I did.
Yeah,
We just basically had to just pay attention to what was going on and do what we can, whatever that we can do within our capacity to do it.
Yep.
That was not easy, considering that it was a very stressful environment. It was very stressful and it was tense at times, and that's never an easy environment to work with, no matter how well trained you are. Yeah.
The environment was no joke, and what I actually found worse than the actual environment was the press, and how how they twisted stories, the angles that they took, which was, for me it seemed that the angle that they were choosing to take was the most hurtful to the next of kin. Choose what you want to say. There's no proof of anything right now, but everybody wants to blame, the pilot and the people on board who may have been the biggest victims, or part of the people who are victims. And I found that really hard to deal with the people that we were dealing with, and even now, dealing with certain individuals who we still have relationships with. The fact that you're trying to twist the story without any facts and saying that it's facts when it's just speculation.
Mm-hmm.
I can't understand why they chose the most hurtful speculation.
Yes.
Because it's hard for people.
I think that I'm sure what you're referring to are the keyboard warriors on Facebook and or social medias, and I think that the reason why they do this is because they feel useless. They want to do something, but they are in no capacity to do anything. Therefore, in their desperate attempt to, they just grab onto whatever they can. And unfortunately, some of them were not sensitive enough to think about how the next of kin would be feeling when if they were to read those kind of posts or the articles that they were sharing.
Exactly, and here's the thing. When you're talking about mental health and happiness, during times of crisis, sometimes it is important, if you are out there posting or doing things online, to understand that in the front line, the people who are most likely to get hurt are probably the ones you least want to get hurt.
Yes.
So, in terms of mental health, I think anybody who is in social media nowadays need to be aware of that and need to, for the lack of a better word, to be polite and sensitive to what's going on.
That's true. I think that we need to think of the consequences of whatever that we share and post on social media, regardless of the topic, and especially when it comes to such crises as the MH missions. I think that a lot of people were very upset about what happened, and they were puzzled. And when they themselves are confronted with whatever that other people are posting that comes up on their news feed, they don't know how to react, and I think that's the reason why they lash out in the way that we see them do.
Yep.
But I think that if they were given specific roles to be able to do something that would actually help, I think they would.
Yeah,
but I think because they were feeling abandoned, and I think that's the reason why they resorted to doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. When it comes down to these events where nobody really knows how to react, giving people things to do is good, but people want to help. Sometimes they just need to learn how to help in order to increase the mental health and happiness, and not, add to the angst.
I think that their first instinct to when they're upset is to find somebody to blame.
Yes.
I think they were trying to blame anyone and everyone as if it will bring back the missing aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's not how it works.
No.
And they think by championing or sharing and highlighting a certain conspiracy, or rather might bring about a solution or even bring back the flight full of its passengers being still alive. But it's been how many months already? Obviously, that wasn't the solution.
Yeah.
So I think that if we were to think positively, there is a possibility that they might have learned from that lesson. Because, but I would have to say, during the MH17 crisis, we saw the same thing. We saw the same trend, and I guess maybe the space, the time period between the two crises were too near for anyone to learn or achieve any wisdom from the first one.
Yeah, okay. You're a bit more positive about it than I am. Let's just leave it at that. But
yeah, well, I mean that's this is the way I would rather look at it, because if we were to think that
mental health, happiness, let's focus on that.
That's right. We have to think of it in a okay, this is the time I'm going to use the word positive way of thinking. That's the only time. Yeah, but
Okay, wait, just to get back, one of the things in this mission, it was overwhelming. There were so many things we had to learn on the job. It was not just one stage. We had the initial stage where it looked like a crisis and everybody was dealing with it like a crisis, and that in a way was a little bit easier because it was just when the crisis happened and really nobody knows. But as it prolonged and we were there like for a month, and the sense of helplessness just increased, although we're still on duty. And that the second stage of crisis was dealing with, when the lawyers started to come in, when the media were really hyping up the hyperbole of what may have happened, where people were, for the lack of a better word, were just getting fatigued. And that became a second stage of the crisis, which was very new and probably unique in, I think, the whole world. And as a therapist in that situation, wow, I'm even thinking back. I'm trying to, there was a sense among all the therapists there. You can't say compassion fatigue because I think all of us were compassionate. It was just pure fatigue. It was just so long and no answers and confusion, and we also, were feeling sad.
I think the compassion fatigue was felt mostly by the mass caregivers, rather than the therapists, because they were the one who were on the receiving end of all the, getting all the brands from all the whereas we were just merely in a supportive role to the mass caregivers. Therefore, I think that's the reason why we could maintain our compassion, and we could maintain some more distance because we could still go home and rest, whereas the mass caregivers, they were working throughout the clock, so.
I mean, Mars did, and I mean, this was not something that people knew, but Mars did an amazing job. They had people there on the ground for so many hours, helping in so many ways, buying all kinds of things and supporting in all kinds of ways. And I mean, they were not in a position to tell people what they were doing, and it was hard for them, and they did a good job.
That's right. And I feel that they are the true unsung heroes.
Yeah.
And they get the recognition, for what they've done. They've done very wonderful job. I mean, I have never seen such dedication. I'm truly in awe of all of them because the true definition of what dedication is all about.
Okay. Again, I'm getting some funny feedback on the computer. It lags a bit and then catches up. I'm not sure whether the actual taping would be like that. I hope it's not. If it is, I'm really sorry. There's not much we can do about it on this side. Okay. Moving on to something else. It's like one of the things that got me through, I think, 100 hours was the fact. Well, you were there, and a few other people were there. Boy was there, and Alice was there. And these are, I'm saying names, but we were a group. We had Chinese, Indians support other as therapists, and that really got me. Well, it got me
Yes.
through the time of being of MH370. And in terms of mental health and happiness, I think that group cohesion, different, whatever background, but working towards a same goal was important in order to deal with this type of situation.
That's true. Given that that airline was a flight that carried a lot of international passengers and foreigners with all kinds of languages involved, and I think we were able to cater for all languages, be it Mandarin or Indian or English or whatever. So fortunate. We're very fortunate in that sense because we are a multiracial country. Therefore, we are able to, do that. It's part. It's a language that somebody masters. I can only English. I speak broken Malay, but there were could speak fluent Mandarin and Indian and therefore I think that was very, very helpful.
Yeah, it was, and I think us helping each other and supporting each other through it was important. I think that may have been actually the most important thing, getting us through the crisis as therapists.
Yes, and then we also realized we saw how giving therapy, being a therapist during crisis such as this, where the work environment is different, the setting is different. Therefore, we can't do a conventional kind of session, and we would really we had to improvise. Basically, we had to look. We watched and observed the body language and
calm people down.
Yeah, calm people down, and we
sit on the floor and do therapy. That was interesting.
Yep.
Kneeling for half an hour. My knees were killing me. I knelt for half an hour, and that's not something I usually do. Kneel down for half an hour and talk to someone.
That's true. And then and then you think about because there's no fatalities in MH370. We were dealing with ambiguous loss, and it was a topic that it was something that is relatively new for a lot of us, especially me, and I had to wing it. I had to adjust. I had to look at what the person that who's sitting in front of me and look at what they need and give them what they need.
Yeah, and I still sometimes communicate with some, and all I'll say is that there are some members, because the bodies have not been found, and people just don't know what happened. And so a lot of people, even right now, are going through ambiguous loss, and they're also going through disenfranchised loss because they feel that they are blamed for the event, and those are hard things to deal with. And I think as a nation, we sort of managed to deal with it, but I have noticed certain effects of MH370 and MH17, which I hadn't before. As a private practitioner, I actually noticed an increase in people willing to come for therapy because of the amount of focus that MH370 and MH17 brought to the mental health industry, because a lot of us were a lot of the work that we were doing were for the first time actually put on TV, talked about, was in the press. As a result, I think that we're actually getting more clients, or more people being willing to at least call us and say, I might be needing help. And as an outcome, that at least there's some. No, I don't know how to say this without sounding bad, but at least more people are asking for help. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, because I would have to say that as bad as this is going to sound, the pinnacle of my career was during the crisis.
Mm-hmm,
That was
mm-hmm.
when I was pushed to my most extreme, and I really survived it. If anybody was to ask me what is my Everest as far as my career is concerned, I would say that it was the missions.
Yep, and I totally get you on that. I mean, post MH370, I also have noticed that there has been a marked increase in fear of flying. Now, this may not be a fear of flying as in a paranoia of flying, but there's definitely more nervousness.
Yes,
There's definitely more anxiety. Every time somebody flies, people are waiting for them to come back and waiting for them to land. And
yes.
I mean, it's not a, I wouldn't say it's a paranoia level predominantly, but I think there's a bit more awareness of flying and more people not wanting to fly if it's possible.
Yes.
What do you think? Have you found?
Yes, I've had several clients who have fear of flying, and some of them were pilots, and not just of our national carrier, but also of international ones. Yeah, and I shan't name which,
No,
but
you can't name which.
globally, everybody is affected. Globally, it has affected everybody. But then again, let's bring things into proper perspective. MH370 disappeared. It did not crash. It did not. There was no malfunction. There was nothing. It just disappeared. So therefore, we don't know what happened. Yeah. And as far as MH17 is concerned, it was shot down, and therefore it was not a failure or a malfunction of the aircraft.
Yeah,
Therefore, if
yeah,
people want to have any anxiety, it is not because of the airline, nor is it because of the aircraft, but because of the global climate somehow is the political climate is somehow not safe, and I think that's the reason why people are afraid to fly. It's not because of mass or it's faulty aircraft or whatever. It's nothing like that whatsoever. I think that is something that we need to highlight. And also, oh God, my flight just threw out the train. Train of thought.
no, let me. Actually, that's not quite what I meant. I don't really think people are. I mean, the airlines is not at fault in any way, and it's not about the airlines. It's actually the ambiguousness of the losses. I mean, usually when there seems to be a logical reason when like a big plane or accident happens. The fact that this is I don't know and nobody knows. That means you can't count on technology. So you can't count on CBT. I can't go and tell you your belief system is wrong when your plane crashes because, look, the plane is a solid thing. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. So I had a client who that worked with initially, and this was a normal client. And what happened post MH7, actually in this post 370, it didn't work because, then the client is coming back and telling me it's no point because the plane can just disappear and no satellites can find it. So technology total fail. And and then the second one came and they went, oh no, not only technology fail, the reason why it can go down is totally out of anybody's control. And so the reason I found with some of my clients was that the increase in fear was nothing to do with the plane. It's just got nothing to do, it was just that the situation where it disappeared and there's no logical reason, not just one, for both. It just makes people more nervous, so that means the I don't know factor of ambiguous loss. So that just makes it worse because it's ambiguous. So I was never actually saying that it had anything to do with the planes or the carrier, because for me it doesn't make a difference. And I've flown both, and I've seen in both planes, both different types of planes, different types of carriers since the events, marked increase in nervousness among passengers, among crew, and these were not the local carrier; these were international carriers.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why the effect is global.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's widespread. But I think that as time goes by, it will ease off when people begin to forget. Um, although
Yeah, people have short memories.
yeah, they do. And well, if we come back to William Glass's the basic needs, right? This is about survival too, right?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big survival need.
And everybody wants some form of control over how they would survive this, you know. And I think this came very handy during the mission when I was asked plenty of times by next of kin questions such as, there's so many questions I don't know answers to. How do I continue? What do I do? You know, because I don't know anything. They were saying all this kind of
Yep.
things. They were asking me, so how do I go on? What do I do? You know, and I say, out of so many things that you don't know, there are things that you know. And there's out of so many things that you can't do, there are things that you can do. So focus on the things that you can do, focus on the things that you know, and do plenty of it. And this somehow or other gave them another way of regaining control, even if it's not on something that they would rather control. At least they have something that they can control,
Yep.
something that they know. You know, we want to keep them feeling enabled, that they can do something, that they can survive this.